You're listening to 15 Minutes, where we feature community leaders sharing what the rest of us should know but likely don't. Hi, Chad Franzen here, one of the hosts of Share Your Voice, where we talk with top-notch law firms and lawyers about what it takes to grow a successful law practice. This episode is brought to you by Gladiator Law Marketing, delivering tailor-made services to help you accomplish your objectives and maximize your growth potential. To have a successful marketing campaign and make sure you're getting the best ROI, your firm needs to have a better website and better content. Gladiator Law Marketing uses artificial intelligence, machine learning, and decades of experience to outperform the competition. To learn more, go to gladiatorlawmarketing.com, where you can schedule a free marketing consultation. Amber James is my guest today. She is the founder and visionary of New Beginnings Family Law, combining her passion for helping families with her extensive legal expertise. Starting her career with a background in music education, she transitioned into law to pursue her calling in family law. After earning her JD in 2006, Amber launched her own practice dedicated to resolving family disputes with compassion and care. At New Beginnings, she focuses on minimizing the emotional impact on children during legal proceedings, offering services in divorce, adoption, surrogacy, and estate planning. Amber, thanks so much for joining me today. How are you?
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really am looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Hey, as I mentioned, you had a background in music education. Tell me how and when you knew you wanted to become a lawyer.
Oh, I knew I wanted to be a lawyer from the time I was very small. I used to watch Perry Mason and Matlock with my dad, so that kind of dates me a little bit. But I would watch those with my dad and knew that that's what I wanted to do with my life. I went to high school, kind of got sidetracked a little bit because I did fall in love with music as well. He played clarinet, flute, and saxophone and things of that nature. And being a first generation college student, most first generation college students become teachers. So I thought, well, this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm a first generation college student. I'm going to go to school and become a teacher. And as a teacher, realized that I could not advocate for my children, my students, in the way that I would have liked to. And so, lacking the diplomacy to continue to be a public school teacher, I decided it was time to go to law school, and then found my way into family law, where I get to advocate for kids in a way that is actually meaningful to their lives.
What was it about those shows like Perry Mason that you watched with your dad that was appealing to you in terms of becoming a lawyer?
Sure. They always solve cases in an hour. We all know that that's not realistic in the real world, but as a child, it was that lawyers were able to help people in really strange circumstances. Matlock might try a criminal case one day and a personal injury case the next, and had kind of a general practice, but was able to really make a difference in the lives of his clients, regardless of what kind of case he had. And that really intrigued me. The ability to help other people in a way that was unique, and that would help them tell their story to a jury or to a judge. That really was exciting for me.
So you ended up getting your JD. Kind of take me through the beginning of your journey through the legal industry. How did you kind of get started?
Sure. So I went to Birmingham School of Law, which is a night law school, and worked full time during the day. I started out in a personal injury law firm because I knew I was called to help hurting people. And lots of people get injured and have to go through a personal injury case. So I started there. I worked there for about 16 months when I was offered a position as the law clerk for a judge in Birmingham that tried nothing but family law cases all day long. And I thought, well, that'll be a change of pace. It's a different kind of job. You work for the state and you get state holidays. I had a toddler at the time, and I thought, well, this works out with my life. So I took the job in the judge's office and fell in love with family law, realizing that the people that hurt the most are those that are sitting in his courtroom, looking to him to make a decision about what's going to happen with their children, what's going to happen with their finances, and things of that nature. So that got me into family law. And then I met my current husband. I had been divorced from my ex-husband, my son's father. I met my husband, who had been divorced from his former wife, and I had a stepson, or he had a son, now my stepson, and really got to see how parties can really affect the outcome of how their children turn out in a divorce case, like the level of anxiety a child experiences going from one home to the other, how you can really impact the life of a child when you work with parents in a family law case. You have the opportunity to coach them and teach them on how you can parent that child in such a way that they have a better outcome, even if their parents aren't going to be able to stay together.
So, what inspired you then to start New Beginnings Family Law?
So when I left law school, I knew I wanted to be a family law attorney. And in the area where I was at the time in Alabama, that was not something that was done. Like, you didn't just have a niche practice. You had a general practice, kind of like Matlock, or one of them. So I knew I wanted to do just family law. And finding a firm that would allow me to do just family law was difficult. So I just decided to hang my own shingle and do things the way I wanted to do them from the very beginning. And it started out as James Family Law Center because that was my last name and that's what made sense. But then as I grew, knowing I didn't really want to take on like named partners, I didn't want the firm to be, James Smith Jones and all these other people. I really wanted the name of the firm to tell a story about what it is we hope for our clients. I mean, Alabama allows us to have trade names in that way, which was a huge benefit. So in 2014, I changed the name of the firm to New Beginnings Family Law, because that's really what I hope for my clients, is that each of them can see that while their circumstances today may be difficult, they can indeed have a new beginning.
What are the biggest challenges you face in doing family law?
I think the biggest challenge that family lawyers face is being able to create an appropriate boundary between lawyer and client in a way that you can be helpful to a client, you can have empathy for a client without kind of buying into the entirety of their conflict. So being able to maintain a certain level of a boundary where you say, I'm here to help you and I'm empathetic to what you're going through and I want to hold your hand and walk you through it, but I'm not also going to like sit in the ditch with you and let you just wallow. Like, we're all going to come through this together. And I'm going to try to lift you up. And then, realizing that we're not responsible for the decisions our clients make in their family law cases. Like, sometimes they do things you tell them not to do. And understanding that, as much as we want to care for them, we're not responsible for their, overall well-being and the overall choices that they choose to make.
I know you prioritize minimizing the emotional impact on children. What are some ways you go about doing that?
A lot of that has to do with coaching clients on, proper communication, helping them see that while they may not care about their spouse anymore, or you may have, very deep-seated hatred for that other parent, that their child is still part of both of them. And when you tell a child, I hate your father, or I hate your mother, or your mother's a horrible person, or your father's a horrible person, what you're telling that child is half of them is bad. Half of them is despicable to you, detestable to you, and it starts impacting their self-worth and their self-esteem. And sometimes it means that they attach to that parent who is talking badly about the other parent because they want to only identify with that parent, and then to the exclusion of the other parent. And sometimes it just, tears the child apart in both directions. So I always, when I talk to clients, I tell them the story of these two little boys. And the story of the two little boys is about my son and my stepson, and about the difference in those two young men because of the way um, each of the sets of parents chose to parent. My son's father was actually at my house yesterday. We were celebrating that he's going away to seminary, and I was there, and my husband was there, and my ex-husband's there. Like, that's what we do for Nick. Nick gets a cheering section everywhere he goes because his parents understand that we don't like each other in that way anymore. We're not romantically involved with one another, and we have no desire to be married to one another. But we all love him. And then, you have cases where mom and dad hate each other, can't be in the same room with one another, can't sit at the same end of the stadium when a child plays a ball game, and the child's looking to both sides, like, where do I go and what do I do? And that creates anxiety and stress in that child's life. And so the child doesn't have that cheering section. So I always try to coach my clients that what you really want for your child is for him to look up in one, or her, look into one place in the stands or in the audience and see their cheering section there for them. And if they, as parents, can give them that even if they divorce one another, that's a gift that they can give their child to show them that, we cannot be married to one another, but we can also all be here for you.
So there's a lot more advice that you give to your clients beyond just kind of legal advice regarding the
Right.
divorce.
Oh yeah, I feel like that's part of my calling is to say I can help you resolve some of your legal disputes. We can go to court and put on the gladiator armor, and go fight the battle. But what's really going to be helpful to you is if I also train you on how I co-parented and how you can co-parent so that your child can have a better outcome. So I feel like a family law attorney has this kind of balance between lawyer and coach in a lot of ways.
Can you has there been like a memorable case that has really impacted you during your time doing this?
There have been several, but the one that I think probably impacted me the most in the last few years is I had what was a contested adoption. So a birth mom who had given her child up for adoption. Um, and that's the decision she wanted to make. Her family got involved and decided to kind of coax her out of the decision she had made and started fighting for custody of this child back from these adoptive parents who had the child for like 4 or 5 months. And that battle drug on, and we had some legal decisions that made that were not in compliance with the law, but were made, and so then we had to appeal them. So this was a long battle of in trial court, in the appellate court, in trial court, in the appellate court, and then we had to try the case over the course of 3 days. And when we got to the end, then you had to wait for the result. And eventually, though, the court found that the little girl should go home with the adoptive parents who had now not seen, because in the course of the case, a court order was entered that removed the child from the adoptive parents and placed the child back with birth mom's family, essentially. And it was just such a mess. But in the end, when that little girl came home to her adoptive parents, and she had not seen them in, I think, 6 or 7 months at the time that they got her back. But for her to instantly see them, this smile come on her face, and this like relax, her whole body relaxed into the body, to the chest of the adoptive mother, and just this like all this stress drained out of this little girl's face. It was one of the most memorable and beautiful moments in my career, and being able to be there in that moment when they got her home. And so it was one of those things that will always impact me. It was one of those cases I didn't know what the right answer was going to be. I knew in my heart what I felt the right answer was, but from a legal standpoint, what is the decision going to be? And so winning that case was kind of one of the highlights of my career.
Do you have to take? I didn't, I never thought about. I thought adoption. I've always thought is kind of just a like a happy type thing. Is there
Mhm.
a lot of I don't know, for lack of a better word, drama associated with your adoption cases that you have?
Most are like just like what you said. They're happy cases
Hmm.
where everybody's in agreement and it's all going to go well. There can be drama and when a birth mom makes a decision that she knows is best for her, and then her family gets involved and wants to change that decision or cause those kinds of issues. But that particular case is probably the most drama filled and
Hmm.
difficult one we've had. But you can see cases too where, and they're sad. It's like when a birth mom has passed away, has raised a child, and you say mom and dad were not married or they were divorced from one another. And so now stepmom is going to adopt because mom has passed away, and now mom's family is still very upset. So those can be difficult too, and trying to help the mom's family, integrate still in a way that helps maintain that family connection, but also honoring the new family that's being created in the adoption process. So it can have its ups and downs. There's more happy moments in adoption than sad ones, but there can be drama in that too sometimes.
Has your background in music education influenced your at all? Has it helped you in some way?
I think when it comes to going into a courtroom and kind of the same mindset that I would get into when I would perform, a clarinet solo or a vocal solo, and the kind of the things that you do to prepare yourself to go on stage to perform, I think helped me in getting ready to go to trial, because it's the same thing. You're making sure that you've practiced your part, that you feel that you're dressed in a way that empowers you, that you look in a way that makes you feel good about yourself, and that you have put the pieces together of a performance to make it a cohesive thing that you can give to the audience. Because in family law, I have an audience of one. I have a judge that I have to, to try my case to. And so thinking through all the performance things that you would do to get ready to go on stage to perform for a larger audience, I do those same things to prepare myself to go in front of one judge, you got to get your mindset right. You've got to feel good about yourself, and you've got to have all of the pieces and parts put together in a way that you can present it in a way that will appeal to the feelings or emotions of the judge you're trying the case for.
I know family law can be a very demanding field. How do you kind of not get caught up in the emotions maybe of a case that can be very
Sure.
where everybody all sides are being very emotional, and how do you kind of maintain a work life balance?
Ooh, those are great questions. So I have worked a lot on my own personal mindset and overcoming, different things. I feel that lawyers sometimes, it doesn't matter what field you're in of law, can develop this complex of a savior complex. I'm here to save my client. I'm here to save them from this situation or that situation. And really working on yourself and realizing that that's something that may appeal to your root system of needing to save other people, and realizing that you're no one's savior. You can help guide them and direct them, and you can provide legal advice, but you can't fix their entire situation for them. But I do a lot of that. I do a lot of reading. I do a lot of mindset work on myself. And then I also am very clear about when I work and when I don't. I've had my children are now, I have one that's leaving for seminary in a few weeks, and then I have a daughter who's in college. And it's always been important to me to be there for their important events. So they knew that mom worked a lot, and that sometimes I would have to work late. But if there was an event that was important to them, I was going to be there for that. And now as I'm older and my kids are not in dance and band, and I'm not having to run to all those activities, it's finding outlets for things that I enjoyed that I didn't get to do, when they were younger. So I'm back singing. I'm in a group. I have developed friendships with other women now, and we go and do things together. And then my husband and I have date night more often than we used to. He works in my firm, so that's kind of weird. We have date night when we don't talk about work, and then we're at work, we can talk about work. But it's redeveloping friendships and relationships when you get to that emptiness kind of stage. But I've always tried to make sure that my kids knew they came first, that my children and my husband came before all other things in the firm. And if it was something important to them, I would be there. But it is difficult to create work-life balance. I think it's kind of like more like work-life integration.
Hmm.
And we do that with our lawyers here. Like, we have one lawyer whose daughter attends school and has to be picked up and dropped off because she goes to a private school and there's no buses. So their work-life integration, she drops her child off at school, she comes to work. We all know there's a hard boundary at 2 o'clock. She leaves and picks up her daughter, and then she goes home and she works from home that afternoon. In this day and age, you can do that. So it's a little easier, I think, to create a work-life integration at this phase versus maybe work-life balance. You're never going to have 12 hours a day at work and 12 at home necessarily, but finding a way to integrate work and life is important.
What qualities do you think a good family law attorney has or would need to have?
Sure. They need to have empathy. I think all lawyers need to have empathy. You need to have the ability to, I find it helpful to have a background in theater or music or art or something where you've had to kind of create a piece of something and present it to someone, because you are really putting together a story. If you're a good writer, I think you could be a good family law attorney because you're creating a story from your witnesses and from what your client's testimony is going to be, and you're trying to make that into something that a judge will listen to. You have characters in a play, you have characters that are going to try to perform before the court, and you're trying to teach them how to present. Having good information about how to interpret body language in a way that I think that's helpful for family law attorneys, because you want your client to have a certain either openness or closed off, depending on the circumstances. So having some background in theater and body language, and as well as law and empathy and psychology, all those things could be really helpful to a family law attorney. Because if you can, maybe not you get to the point where you could diagnose the client, but if you can, notice too, kind of quirks and things to kind of understand how your client thinks and feels from a psychology perspective, that can also be really helpful.
What role does mediation play in your practice?
Sure. I'm don't mediate as a mediator myself in a lot of circumstances. I'm starting to kind of wade into those waters a little bit and try it. But mediation, like the mediation process, is a huge part of our practice. I think about 80% of our cases do go to mediation. And when you're thinking about a divorce perspective, and those cases generally settle in mediation unless there's some really strange circumstance that just needs to be tried, because our mediators here are so good. They've all tried cases in front of all these judges, and really know kind of their quirks and their ins and outs, and can say, if you present this to the court in this way, I don't know that you're going to get the result you're looking for, and that can help a client. As lawyers, that helps us too, to have that outside voice to say, hey, I know you feel like the case is going this way, but this is my concern. If you try it, let's try to come up with a creative solution, because a mediator sees both sides. And the way we normally do mediation here is you caucus, so you have husband's lawyer here and wife's lawyer over here, and the mediator's going between. So the mediator knows both sides. They don't ever disclose both sides, but they, are like, well, I don't know that's going to, go the way you think it's going to go. Maybe try this solution instead. And so they're really great creative problem solvers. Our mediators here in our area are. So a lot of those cases settle. It's harder when you get into, say, a modification of a custody case where one party's been awarded custody and now they want to change. Those can be harder to mediate.
What do you have to prioritize when you handle cases involving domestic violence?
I have to prioritize my client safety, our staff safety. I put in safety protocols here. Unfortunately, everybody has had active shooter training in our office. We are all, David and I, or one of the other lawyers in my firm, are both certified in domestic violence mediation. So we use a lot of the things we learned there to learn how to create a safe environment within our firm. One of the great things about the building we're in is you could park in our parking lot and nobody really knows that you're at a family law firm. Like you could be here for the bank, or there's a telehealth, not a telehealth, what I'm trying to say, like one of those nurse practitioner medical practices upstairs. So you could be here for a variety of different reasons. You wouldn't necessarily only be here to see a family law attorney. So that does help create that different level of environment. We've created scan cards and things like that to secure the work environment for ourselves. And if we have a client who's the victim of domestic violence, we always bring them kind of to the interior of the office. So we have like exterior rooms that are conference rooms, and we have interior rooms that are behind a locked door. And we'll bring them back, through that. And then we do a lot of, domestic violence training so that we can screen properly, and learn the most recent criminal laws and how we can use those to protect our clients if need be. Making sure they are seeing the magistrate to file the right kind of warrants and things of that nature. But with a domestic violence victim, you really have to go even deeper into the helping them kind of goal set and coaching them on how to have that next step in their life where they are no longer dependent on the person who's been their abuser or falling into another relationship just like that relationship. You have to really work on their internal feelings and mindsets and emotions, and help them find that feeling of worth again, so that they don't fall into that pattern of just entering into the next relationship that's just like the last one.
When you first launched New Beginnings, what were the early days like? How did you go about getting clients and things like that?
So when I call it being a baby lawyer. And when I first hung my shingle, it was me and a laptop and a cell phone in an office where the guy ran an insurance agency and he happened to have extra space. And so when I wanted to go get clients, the first thing I did is I went and got on the appointed list, because I just knew that was a way to get, clients in the door. And it wasn't money that would pay me right now. It would pay me whenever the case was over, but I would also get valuable courtroom experience. So I represented parents in cases where DHR was taking their children. I represented the children in those kinds of cases as a guardian ad litem. And then I was also a very early adopter of technology. So I was one of the first law firms in our area to have a website. I felt like that was going to be the new wave of the future. It's the new back of the phone book kind of thing. At the time, though, most of the lawyers in my area didn't think that. They thought, no, it's yellow page ads and it's, billboards and it's those kinds of things. And I'm like, no, I think this digital like billboard like website thing is going to be a hit. So we had a very simplistic website, but we spent money to do that, to have this website. And because we were the only ones out there at the time, that was a way to bring in clients. So
So you've grown the firm from zero to seven figures, I think. What is it
Yes.
about the culture there that makes it so special? And how do you get clients now?
But we'll start with the get clients now. The get clients now, I mean, you have to adapt to whatever the newest technology is from that perspective. But we're also active and out in our community. When I was a baby lawyer, I got into to Rotary at some point, and that helped. I'm also now part of the Women's Economic Development Council and the Women's Business Center. We've been very active in our chamber, which gives us exposure to other business owners, because those are really people we like to help too, is women who own businesses who are now going through a divorce, and we've got to figure out how do we protect her business from being, chopped up in the divorce. And so we get clients in that way. We probably get more referrals now than we ever have, but we still have an active, online presence between websites and directory listings and things like that. What's unique about our culture is it very much is team oriented. A lot of people say that, like, oh, we're a team oriented firm, but we really are. Each lawyer in the firm knows everything about everybody else's cases, to the point that if any one of us needed to pick up a file and go, we could. We make an effort to greet client. If there's a client in the hallway and they're not ours, we still introduce ourselves. And then as a firm, we really work on our culture, and on the mindset of our attorneys, and understanding that we are a team. We're not five lawyers, in five separate siloed law firms. We are one law firm. We speak with one voice. There's one font. There's one format that we all use, and we do a lot of team building activities to, when we have a problem, we solve that in a creative, way, using, normal business, techniques versus, because a law firm and a business are the same thing. Lawyers like to think of it as maybe not, but using the same things you would use in any other business. We have a business coach. A few weeks ago, he came in and did a problem-solving game with us. So bringing in, some outside perspective sometimes can be helpful. But we are a very close-knit group here in our firm, and it's I think it's a great place to work. And we've been, named some of the best places to work. And so that's been, a blessing too. So.
Great. Sounds great. How can people find out more about New Beginnings Family Law?
Sure. Probably the easiest thing is to look at our website. It's newbeginningsfamilylaw.com. You can find us on different, we've appeared as guests on different podcasts. And so we have some of those links there as well. Or they can always just give us a call at the office, and it's 256-518-9529.
Okay, sounds good. One more question for you. If
Yes,
a young lawyer, or maybe a recent law school graduate, or someone entering law school even, came to you and said, I really want to get into family law. Seems like a way I can help people. What is some advice you would give them that maybe they didn't learn in law school, or couldn't learn in law school, and could only have learned by, walking in your shoes?
sure. I think, I would encourage them to observe a family law court case to see how it goes. Our dockets here are published publicly on the 23rd Judicial Circuit's website, so you can see which judges have domestic relations cases. I would also encourage them to find a lawyer that they would be willing to talk to and be open with and can have a good relationship with, to bounce ideas off of, to be that sounding board when they need it. I'm blessed that one of my very best friends is a family law attorney, and we don't talk about people or cases necessarily, but it's just like, I'm struggling today because like this is going on, and I'm having a difficult day. So having someone to be that confidant for you that can understand what you're going through. I also encourage them to read voraciously anything they can find about divorce or family law, or just psychology in general, emotional intelligence. Any books on emotional intelligence would be helpful for them to understand, being emotionally intelligent in yourself, and then recognizing when clients are trying to manipulate them or things of that nature as well. So I think it's reading, it's finding good confidants, and it's going and just observing what actually happens in a family law court case, so that they can be more comfortable, that they know exactly how to present a case.
Okay, great advice. Hey, Amber, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been great to talk to you. Thanks for all your insights and for sharing your time with us. Really appreciate it.
No problem. I appreciate you having me on. Thank you so much.
So long, everybody. Thanks for listening to 15 Minutes. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next time.